Man, thank you so much for coming on. You're going to be here in Houston. You're with I Prevail. You're going to be here Saturday, August 10th,
Yes.
at the Woodlands Pavilion. You've played there several times. You've done shows for us too here at the Buzz. So I think we all kind of know like what to expect on the show. But what I was looking at, we're playing on Saturday. You're playing on Saturday for us, and then you're in Dallas on Sunday. And I was just going to ask you about your voice. So two a day, or back to back nights. That's not a problem for you.
No, to be honest, my record is 8 nights in a row, which I do not recommend to anyone. But now, the fortunate thing about gaining a following and getting to the point where you can kind of pick and choose how much and how little you do. I usually stick about 3 in a row, no more. Just because it's longer sets now, and I like to give 110 every single night. I don't necessarily always have control over that. There are some nights that I go out and I'm like, okay, keep it calm until whatever, and then you get out in front of people and you just lose yourself in the moment, and just you want to give everything like it's your last show. So I do, for anyone concerned listening to that, I do warm up to some degree every day, and I try to take care of myself, hydrate. It's a lot of simple stupid stuff. It's like the things that everyone always thinks that there's a magic feather to the way that you sing or to be consistent. A lot of it is just listening to your body. If it hurts, you're doing it wrong, don't do that. B, make sure that you drink a ton of water. And C, again, just kind of check yourself. Like, to me, every day, it's like goes from, I could wake up in the morning and be like, okay, a lot of it is there. I don't have to work so hard to get there. Some days you wake up and I'm like, okay, my high range is a little squeaky. I got to work that out. And so I have some exercises that I end up doing. But
Are you strict about, is there a no talking period for you before the shows?
Not before the shows. The only time that I go through a no talking period is if I have a cold and I'm feeling like I'm kind of losing it. I'll take a break. And that's one of the hardest things to possibly do, is to try to be like, hey guys, I'm not like speaking, for a couple hours in the bus or whatever. And it's always at that moment that someone's like, hey, I got something to tell you. Hey, what about this? But for me, it's like, the only like rules that I really go by is, I don't have a big meal within about 2 hours out of our show.
Okay.
And then about an hour out, the guys and I end up getting together. We warm up on our instruments, and I kind of warm up on vocals. So it's one of those. Those are really the only strict things. And if it's really hot out, I end up putting my leather jacket in the refrigerator or the freezer for a good hour before we go on stage, because you got to have your leather, but sometimes it's 90 degrees out. So.
That's got to be like a cold plunge, shocking putting that on for the for the first moment.
Oh, absolutely. But my dream, and I have not made it happen yet, is to just have an entire wardrobe case that's just, you can plug in and just, it's refrigerated. I feel like that'd be a good invention.
Nice.
Help me out here.
So take me to that moment right before you guys are going on stage. Okay. You've done all your warm-ups, you've done everything. Is that kind of it? Or is there any like one more thing? Is there anything that you guys do? Do you huddle up? Do you powwow? Do you pray? Yeah. Do you do a shot? Do you do something right before you hit the stage?
So we started doing something in 2006 when we first started like really touring, and like the first of 4 opening up for like Flyleaf, Shinedown, and Seether, because the 4 of us realized that all 4 of us are a little ADHD and get distracted, and there would be multiple shows where we could not find our drummer 2 minutes before we're about to go on. So, and that's a whole other story. Like he's gotten himself locked into bathrooms, locked out of the building, stuck at catering, the whole thing. But again, that's all roads lead to my little brother, RJ, on the drums. But we all started doing like individual kind of like weird secret handshakes. So each of us have like a little, like, it starts expanding kind of like nicknames, like a part of the personality. So like we start with like it's a half high five, half fist bump. So we kind of do those things. And then everybody has their little something else, but we all end up, that's before we go on, we must do that, regardless of whether we all know each other's there. But it's kind of like our little, like, okay, here we go, let's do it. And sometimes we're just kind of poking fun of each other, that kind of thing, just to kind of lighten the mood. Because what happens, I know on my end personally, I call it a beautiful panic because without fail, the same thing has happened to me since I was 13 years old, first starting to get on stage. Um, I you end up kind of transforming a little bit into a different person, and now all of a sudden it's time to jump off the cliff. Okay, you've done your preparation, and now it's time to let all of those rules go and just trust each other and trust yourself. And so it's that moment of like, you're walking up those stairs to stage, somebody hands me my guitar, it goes on, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, here we go. Like, will my body let me do this? And so that's the person that you see on stage, is that elevated form of self.
I can't wait any longer. You look like you're calling me. You look like you're calling me for the most interesting room in the world. Where are you? That looks so cool. Look out, like you're in like a laboratory of rock.
It pretty much is. This is my basement, actually, and which I converted into a studio. The Fender Rhodes that you see behind me is the first instrument that my parents ever got me from a flea market.
That's the same one.
Same one. And then, I mean, we have a bunch of guitars and stuff. The guys and I have been getting together, got RJ's kit in the back. What we end up doing before we have production rehearsal with the crew and the lights and all that stuff, we end up getting together before every tour, about 2 weeks before, just in my basement right here. And just with our, just crappy PA system, plug in, and just kind of like we're in my parents' basement back in the day.
But do you have a hunk of property there? I mean, or do you have neighbors right next door?
I do have neighbors right next door. And the funniest thing is that the only complaint I've ever heard is, why can't I hear more of the music?
Nice.
I have very good neighbors. That a lot of the surrounding people in my neighborhood have either worked in the music industry or are just thrilled to have somebody who does. So I'm very lucky in that regard.
And no address or anything, but where are you? Where are you?
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay. So tons of musicians, tons of people in the industry all over the place.
Yeah, they call it a drinking town with a music problem, which is very true if you ever come to visit.
My God, that basement, it looks so cool. I grew up north, so no basements here in Texas, but growing up north, that's where all the best music was played. I mean, that's where, me and my dopey bands, we all played downstairs. And I always felt that like such great music came out of mom's basement. It had to be cold outside. There had to be gray skies and like a couple of smokestacks from some factories. Like that's where all the best music came from.
Same. So I grew up in Pennsylvania. So like just nothing going on, and snow days, nothing to do outside. And so the guys and I would get together literally in my parents' basement that looked very similar to this, except for just more parent stuff around. But so when I got my house, I really wanted to recreate that for myself, but also for the guys, because I just think it's very important, especially for what we do, to start everything, whether it's, we've done, I mean, a ton of writing. We've written hundreds of songs down here, just starting from nothing and just being like, oh, I love this bass line or whatever. And it's better that way. It's good to do those things instead of, upon inception, going into the studio without talking to each other, or, we live a very fast life. So to kind of slow down and really remember where you came from and get back to that stuff is very, I think it's key.
Have we heard anything? I mean, is it just really raw demos from that basement? Have we heard anything that was recorded there?
Yes, a lot of our album Vicious was recorded here. Some of the last album, specifically Bombshell, was recorded here. And we've done a lot of those things up through really anything past the third album, because past the third album was when I ended up kind of moving to Nashville. So there's a lot of that. It's interesting when we've been talking a lot about that, because we've been writing for another record, for another album, and we've been talking a lot about the magic that comes, the difference in the magic that comes from when you're just here in the basement by yourselves versus when you're in a studio with a producer and a bunch of engineers like watching you do it. There's a different personality that comes with it. Now, sometimes that element of performance, like, oh my gosh, I have to like do this in front of people, is very good. And other times it's really hard to recreate that intimacy or that magic or that one moment that happens that now, okay, it's on the demo. Now I have to sing it again in the same way, or I have to play it again in the same way. And sometimes you can't recreate that. So a lot of times, the craziest thing, because it started happening kind of inadvertently, like our producer would come up and say to me like, hey, I've been listening to this track and I haven't gotten it yet from you. And what a wonderful, just like no ego involved thing to say, to an artist, being like, hey, you actually got this take better than what I can bring out of you. Let's use that. And so can you send me the stems and all the things that you recorded so that I can mix it? And I've done any of the collaborations that you have heard from me since Shatter Me by Lindsey Sterling have been done in the studio. So all of my vocals that I've recorded for other people's songs or other collaborations that I have released over the past 10 years have been on my own in my studio.
Hang on a second. Okay, now I gotta cut you off.
Yeah, no worries.
Amy Lee break in?
Actually, no, not
where was that?
That was here in Nashville, but that was
a big room.
Yeah, that was not here. That was not in the not in the Hale hole, as we call it. A little Spinal Tap reference for the kids, but yeah, no, that was recorded in Nashville in a studio with Nick Reskulinets, who ended up doing our last 3 albums. So that is one of the prettiest songs I've ever heard. I've mentioned it to Amy before, and she talked so fondly of you in an interview a while ago. And I know you guys were touring together, and I mean, it was a genuine. She wasn't faking it. Like, she's like, I really enjoy her being around, and we really are friends. And there's no competition or anything. And you two singing together on that song, I'm sure you've heard it before. I mean, it's in rarefied air for me. The prettiest song maybe I've ever heard is Trio, when Dolly and who is it? Linda Ronstadt and yes.
Yeah, her. Emmylou Harris. And they do that cover, that Neil Young cover. And but when you and Amy are singing, the same thing. Like, the same thing happens to me. The hair on my arms is standing up. It really is one of the prettiest songs I've ever heard.
It's such a rarity, and I'll tell you two things about Amy. Number one, and this is can be assumed all day, but there is something beautiful about finding another woman that we're like old war buddies. You have a similar timeline, you have similar battles that you have, and hurdles that you've had to go through, that and this is not comparing Mars versus Venus, but it's just different than when two dudes talk about their journey. And I've been so incredibly grateful to her friendship and on and off stage, both music related and not. But I will tell you a funny story about that recording. So we recorded that live. That video is exactly what you hear.
There was no way that you were lip syncing that video. And that was going to be a question. You're singing your ass off. You're singing your ass off in the video. And there's no way that was synced up.
No, well, and it's funny because when we both arrived at the studio, we do our, we have like an hour of just gabbing because we haven't seen each other in a while. And she's like, okay, I'm going to go get my tea. And then we come back and we both said, well, maybe we should like kind of go over it before we start recording. And so we're sitting there and just a cappella. I start and then she comes in and we sing the whole song a cappella. And then she's like, oh, I'm going to like go, whatever. She had to go to the bathroom or something, and she came, and so she left the room, and I turned to Nick, our producer, who was in the booth at the time, and I said, do you realize how difficult that would be to do with any other singer on earth? But with Amy, we don't even have to have a reference. We can just sing with no reference, start and like do the whole song a cappella just like that. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that he ended up having a sneaky recording of that, but I haven't heard that yet. But it was one of those magical things that it's like being equally matched by someone with a different style, but like a sparring partner or in a tennis match. Whereas no matter what you do, they can lob it back at you with that same kind of speed. And it's a beautiful dance that we're able to do together. And that's a huge rarity. I've sung with so many people over the past 20, almost 27 years we've been Halestorm. And that is still something that has only really happened with her. And so it is a true testament to not just her work ethic and her talent, but what she's born with. And there's a magic to her that is very easy to or I shouldn't say easy, but it is very natural for me to kind of jump on that same train. And so it's something that we really wanted to do together.
And I guess the best thing you said was you are vocally dancing with one another. And I never put it in that, but it makes sense. And just so everybody knows, it was done a few years back. It's called Break In, and it's coming up on 8 million views. So most people watching this have seen that. Now, you said that you had some catching up to do, and you guys had some girl talk. I want to talk about you. I got to know what was talked about. You got to give me something. So I'm scrolling through Instagram, and then there's you. Big smile on your face. You smile with your whole face, and you look really, really happy, right? And then sitting at your table, it's got to be the rainbow. I don't think you said that in your thing, but it's Billy Corgan, Scott Ian, Tom Morello, and DMC. I'm like, holy shit, what are they talking about? It's like the coolest table of rock ever. And it's funny. No one's touched their water. This is me just being a nerd. I'm looking at everything. All the water glasses are full with their little piece of lemon on there, but everybody's got a little drink there. Tell me about what a crazy group of people at one table.
It's a beautiful meeting of the minds. There's all.
Is it planned?
Kind of, sort of. It got put together, and then we're all sitting there, and we just start talking about metal and the importance of music and how it has saved so many lives. So we go through the political aspects of it, and the idea of how many people are in it for the right reasons, how many people are lifers, how many people never say die, how many people look at this life and like they want to climb Mount Everest, right? And people think we're crazy because it's not like there's a trophy at the top or this here you got a certificate of completion. It's we have to see, and there's bodies along the way, and it's chaos, and then you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, it could have gone so easily the other way, but for some reason we all stuck it out and we all still believe in it. So it was the choice that we made a long time ago, all of us, when we were teenagers, to get into rock music, wasn't even really ours. We were trying to we got off onto that tangent where it's like, I think that music chooses you, not the other way around. Because if we wanted an easy life, easy whatever, or a normal anything, there are so many other options, better ways. Normalcy is always an option. But for some reason, we're all still here. So the wonderful thing about talking to musicians is that we're not always just talking about, oh, what tour do you have coming up and whatever. It's like we deep dive about those things. And so to get together it was such a beautiful moment for me because, I mean, all of these men that I was seated at that table with are the people who constantly have inspired me throughout my journey. And so to be able to find those common threads, those common grounds, we had so many moments where we're like, wait a minute, we're all perpetually 14. We just got stuck there, right? Just the jokes are flying. And it was just beautiful. It was a life-changing event to see. And then we all would have these little epiphanies. I saw, D from Run DMC just have this beautiful moment of when metal came into his life and it got fused into his hip hop roots, and talking about his uncle and all these things. And then Billy Corgan is so incredibly well spoken in his, we go through, all of the views that metal, everyone's like, oh, metal people are angry and they just want to fight. Like, no, actually it's the complete opposite. We are giving a sanctuary to the downtrodden, giving a voice to the weirdos. It's kind of like, it's like when you see a band, it's like that band isn't a gang. and you want to be in that gang. And so we're welcoming everybody in. And so again, with all of us at that table, it dovetailed hard,
Right. But does it
everybody.
ever get to a point where, hey, let's do something? Or, I mean,
Oh
or
yeah.
is that, I mean, is that within the bounds of when you're
Oh,
sitting around and talking with these guys? Hey,
of course.
let's write a song. Let's do this. Can that come up freely?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just like, if it just exactly the way I'm talking to you right now. It's like we all, have, there was so much respect at the table for everybody and everything, not just what they've accomplished, but the fact that we're all still here and we all still love it and we all still want to make music and we write every day. So yes, all of those
Okay.
all of those questions and, hey, what are you doing this summer? Oh, hey, I'm going to be here. What is this? Oh,
Yeah.
I have this idea that would be perfect for you. That kind of stuff that all came up as well.
Have you done
What
something
a
with
wonderful.
Tom Morello? Because he's always getting in singers and he's, this Atlas, it's Atlas Underground. I want to make sure I don't
Yes.
screw it up with the other band. Yeah. And have you done anything with Tom?
I have not yet. We did talk about it because
How
we
are you
were
the
that
only
was
person on the planet that hasn't jammed with that guy?
it's very true. That's exactly kind of what came up. He's like, look, you've sung with all these different people and I've done all these other things. How come we haven't gotten hooked up yet? I'm like, well, now's the time, I suppose.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I've done little things. I've done some things with Billy Corgan, but that's always open as well. And it's like it's such a beautiful thing to just be nerds, like really nerds and dorks about the things that we love.
Yeah.
And down to the nitty gritty of like, you realize, and this is something, I guess this is a blanket statement for anybody trying to get into music, but I'm gonna like, here's the biggest kept secret that nobody wants to believe, but it's true. Nobody actually knows what the hell they're doing. Nobody actually has this magic ingredient for a hit song. We're all just chasing what gets us excited and hoping it moves somebody and makes a moment. And regardless of any of that, something that we kind of all agreed on is that that doesn't even matter. Like you can be maniacally loved or you can be maniacally hated or whatever in between, but those things ultimately don't matter. You need to be writing like you're on an island by yourself and you're the only person that can judge that. Do you like it? Does it make you feel something? Is it your voice? Will it be something that you that is an entry to your diary, that is a soundtrack to your life? Are you proud of it? And then ultimately that's all that matters. And the crazy thing about how that translates is, especially for terrible liars like myself, I can't fake it on stage. I've tried, but if I'm going out and I'm going to be singing something or I'm going to be delivering a message, I have to believe in it or nobody else will. Everybody can see right through the facade. So the crazy thing about doing things for yourself and having that trust and that love in what you do is that that's ultimately the only way to win. The only way to draw people in is for you to be unapologetically you. And so those were kind of some of those subjects that came back around as well.
But that applies
yeah.
to, I mean, that applies to anybody anybody that's still watching this. That applies to everybody, though,
Yeah,
like what you
anyone
said. I
doing
mean,
anything. Yeah.
I think everybody has that. I mean, there's that, I don't know if is it called imposter syndrome or whatever.
Yeah.
I've been here in Houston now 20 years and, and I'm from I'm a punk kid from Buffalo, New York. And what am I doing in the fourth biggest city in America thinking that I could wake them up every day? It just, like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not asking questions.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny because for a long time I went through that too, where I'm like, well, why? Why is this happening? It's like, again, I'm a dork from Pennsylvania with no, like, I have a high school diploma under my belt. I can barely do long division. I can't. I'm a terrible waitress. I can't do anything else. And so why do people care? Why do people put me up on a pedestal? Why am I still doing this? And it took me a long time to like just kind of come to the terms where like I don't have to know why, because I'm present and I'm living every day and writing every day like this is the last thing I'm ever going to do, and I love it. And so that's really all I need. I don't need to have this grand explanation as to why I'm doing what I'm doing or why people care. Or I can say the same thing about us talking today. The fact that you're interested in talking to me blows my inner 13-year-old. If you could tell her that when I'm on our 20-acre farm trying to learn and write songs on that instrument, if you were to tell me that when I was that age, I'd be like, no way. There's no way anyone would even care. So I'm so grateful. But yeah, there doesn't have to be the why or the end to the story.
Right. And the fact that you've maintained that, and and a little bit with me that applies, and it's there's something that's certainly common there. You got to give me just a couple minutes on
Yeah.
this Skid Row stuff we've been talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, you're smiling, so that's good. How many shows are you committed to? A certain amount of shows singing for Skid Row?
I'm committed to 4 shows.
Okay.
Which is what we started as. At the same time, it's kind of it's caught on like wildfire. So
Yep.
I feel like once I know that, because if I know the set, and depending on how long it takes for them to get a permanent lead singer, I'm not I'm not going to even start to deny that there probably will be another show or 2 after that.
That seemed like that came out very soon after you committed to those 4 shows. It seemed like you were wide open to, hey, I got to put the same amount of work in getting ready for that first show. So
exactly.
For everyone else that's watch, you got to get ready for that first show. Well, then you could do 10 or 20 or 30 after that.
Well, it's such a beautiful thing. And I think it's a huge testament to everyone being in it for the right reasons. It came about very organically. I was at a birthday party for one of our mutual producer friends, and Rachel Bolan comes up to me, and we were talking about some stuff, and he's like, hey, I have a question. You're like, would you ever consider like fronting our band for a couple shows? Because we're having some stuff going on. And I said, well, yeah, dude, let me know. Like, I love you. Like, I've known Snake and Rachel for probably the better part of a decade now. They were one of the first ones when I moved to Nashville that were like, hey, you're from the East Coast and so are we. And like, hey, let's do some stuff together. I remember the first time I played with Rachel was at a bar here in Nashville. We all got up. It was myself, it was Rachel Bolan, it was like Kip Winger, the original drummer for Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, and I think it was it Brad Whitford was there that night too, and like a bunch of the Cinderella dudes that were all doing like a Judas Priest cover. And this was the moment where I'm like, I was renting at the time, like maybe I should stay here for a little while. This is crazy. But anyway, I digress. So Rachel asks me or tests the waters with me. And then a little while later, he calls me up. He's like, hey, I want to call your bluff. Like, were you serious about that? Because this is happening. And could you make this work for us? Here's like 4 days that we definitely need to have happen. And so I called up the adults, my manager and everything. And I'm just like, hey, can we clear the schedule for this? I really want to do this for this guy. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm helping out some buddies. We're going to do some shows. And then when they announced it, it blew all of our minds, because it wasn't about that anymore. Now it's this event and this full circle thing for me growing up in the East Coast, where PA and Jersey are like, Skid Row is king, like I grew up listening to this stuff. The boys back home that raised me, like introduced me to Slave to the Grind and to 18 in Life and all of that. So now I'm hearing from people that I haven't heard from in like 15 years, like, oh my gosh, I'm coming to see the show, so it's something so beautiful for everyone to kind of look forward to. And of course, there's a little bit of like, my beautiful panic mode, as we were talking about before, be like, hey, everyone's really hyped. You better be good. So what I've been doing is these Skid Row sets are part of my workout routine every day. So I just did this morning. I get on the stationary bike and I am literally singing through all of the songs as they're playing through with me, and working on the inflections of those original songs. I'm not just going to be covering them with these guys. I'm fronting Skid Row. I am acting front person for them. And so there's an element of respect, this beautiful respect that I have for their catalog and everything that they've done, and the legend that they are. And so it's been an interesting learning journey for me, because this isn't just like, hey, can you sing this song here, or can you cover this song in your own way, which I'm kind of used to doing. Now it's like I have to be Sebastian Bach, and I have to be Eric, and I have, so
Yeah.
it's it's a responsibility, but I'm willing to jump off that cliff.
Now listen, I mean, Sebastian was exceptional. They lucked out with that. He was a kid at the time. Getting him from Toronto, all of that was amazing. Um, you brought him up. So Sebastian, you know him?
I do.
Okay. So does any phone call have to happen? Do you have to call him? I'm not saying you got to ask permission. He's not in the band. He has not been in the band in a long time. Is there anything that you need to do?
I haven't gotten a phone call from him yet. And I was almost expecting to be roasted a little bit, because
he's got a good sense of humor.
One thing I love about Sebastian is that he's very quick-witted, and I just kind of always, my dream is to get to the point where I can just get him on a plane for any party that I have going on, because he's always, kind of the centerpiece of that. So I feel like because we have a little bit of a history knowing each other and playing, and performing together on stage and all that, I know that there is a mutual respect to that. So I haven't really got, I was expecting to get him a little bit more heat, not really so much from him, but from the diehard fans that really want him to get back together. And now, again, at the same time, that's not up to my hands. And to be clear, I'm not replacing Sebastian Bach or being their permanent lead singer. I can hardly do it in one band. There's no way I'm doing two different bands.
You're being very, very modest.
But at the same time, it's a beautiful thing to to realize I am surrounded by these people that, again, have inspired me. I mean, if you really, all the vocal nerds, if you really deep dive into a lot of the inflections that I have for high notes, the way that I use my higher chest resonance, there's a lot of those early records from Skid Row that are ingrained in my DNA. So
what's the one though? What's the one? Is it I Remember You? What's the one where what are you going to work the hardest on? Is there one song that already is going to be, all right, this one I'm going to need a glass of water afterwards?
Well, I've covered and we've actually released versions of Slave to the Grind before, so that's going to be a little bit more of an easier one for me because I've been there. Really, I'm mainly working on the ones that I know that the fans are going to pick apart. I'm preparing for that a little bit. So yeah, it's the I Will Remember You. It's Monkey Business. It is is 18 in Life. The like, am I gonna hold that out as long? Yeah, I gotta. It's like there's no choice. I can't just take liberties. It's like, no, I better do this. And it's gonna be. I'm looking forward to showing a side of me that I think everybody is maybe half expecting from me, but hasn't seen yet. Whereas, like, I will she be able to execute all of these songs that we have been listening to since we were teenagers, and that's a beautiful thing too. With with our collective fan bases that we are both kind of bringing together. There are all walks of life. This is like a family affair. The daughters and their dads, the couples, the 80s.
We're bringing our kids to these shows now. That's what we're doing.
It's amazing, and I love it because I feel like I've talked to a lot of young kids kind of in this generation that are into hip hop and alternative and pop, and they're all discovering. They're discovering Skid Row. They're discovering Smashing Pumpkins. They're discovering Alice in Chains and bringing that into the fold like it's something new that they've never touched before. So, again, a true testament to music has no time or age,
Yeah, I don't know if this came up in your discussion with him, but Corgan said that Gen Z's ready for a second act, and I don't know if we're
Oh,
kind of in. We might be in that. This new Pearl Jam album, we might be in that second act right now. But that's a quote from him. So I'm here for it. I mean, believe
yeah.
me, I'm here for it.
I mean, all that guy needs is a pulpit, and I'll preach, sir. But I really do. I see that, and I see that a lot culturally too. I mean, I know there was kind of a wave, in fashion like 2 years ago where I swear I saw all these teenagers coming to our shows, and I'm like, that's exactly what I wore in 8th grade.
Yeah, you got the flannels, the ripped jeans, all of that.
Yeah. I'm
here for it. Bring it
I'm
back.
digging through my closet, man. I'm coming back.
Well, listen, I have to tell you, I have enjoyed the shit out of this discussion. Thank you so much for taking so much time with me today.
You're so
I loved
welcome.
it.
You're wonderful to talk to, and thank you for sharing your passion with me.
I Prevail, Halestorm, Saturday, August 10th. Tickets are on sale now through Ticketmaster. When are the Skid Row shows?
The Skid Row shows are in May.
Okay.
Yeah,
you got some time.
Yeah, I got a little bit of time. Well, we always say that. We're like, oh, we got all this time, and then all of a sudden it's here. So, but as far as
is there a calendar with a red circle on it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I live and die by that calendar and reminders and all of those things, notes to myself everywhere. If I can't even read my own gibberish most times. But as far as the I Prevail shows go, this is a very special tour for us. We've actually gotten together, both bands, and we've written a song together that we're actually planning on performing at the show. So it's going to be different. It's not just, hey, let's saddle up our wagons together and do a show. This is kind of like a call to arms, and hey, here's the people that follow us, here's the people that follow us. And we've actually stalked a lot of our super fans, like collectively, like, oh, I can't wait for them to meet this guy and all this stuff. Like, oh, they're gonna love each other. So it's gonna be a fun show.
And I'm just throwing this out there. There's a lot of work going into these Skid Row songs. What about Halestorm? Would you ask those guys to maybe work something up? You've already done all the work on the vocals, maybe a Skid Row cover.
Yeah, right. I agree. I've told last night we had that conversation. I'm like, hey guys, I got it down. All we need is let's go.
That seems perfect.
So, yeah, I'm sure that will end up kind of, a killing of multiple birds with one stone, where it's like, guys, I know 18 in Life down pat now. Like, just come on, let's put the chords together.
So great. Lzzy, thank you. You're the absolute best. Thank you so much for all this time today.
Anytime, sweetheart. Thank you so much.